Florida sells a dream, sun-drenched beaches, theme parks that never close. A state where the winters are mild and the retirement communities stretch as far as the eye can see. People move here by the millions every year chasing that image. But there is another Florida that the brochures don't show you, one that has been quietly growing for years. In certain towns across this state, the homeless encampments have expanded so far and so fast that they now rival the actual downtown. Rows of tents, makeshift shelters built from tarps and salvaged wood, grocery carts parked like cars, whole communities living in the spaces between buildings, under overpasses, along riverbeds, and on public sidewalks that were never designed to be anyone's home. Florida has the third highest homeless population in the entire country. Only California and New York have more unhoused people. The 22 three-point-in-time count found nearly 31,000 people sleeping without stable housing on a single night. And those are just the people they actually counted. The real number is almost certainly higher. Then in 22-4, something unprecedented happened. Governor DeSantis signed House Bill 1365, making Florida one of the most aggressive states in the country on public camping. The law took full effect October 1, 2024, banning cities and counties from allowing people to sleep or camp on public property. Starting January 1, 2025, residents and business owners gained the right to sue their local governments if someone was found camping and nothing was done within 5 days. The message from the state was clear: get these encampments out of sight. But you can't legislate your way out of a housing crisis. When there aren't enough shelter beds, when rents have doubled in 5 years, when mental health services are chronically underfunded, people don't disappear because a law says so. They move. They scatter deeper into the woods. They push their tents further from the roads where the cameras aren't watching. The problem doesn't go away. It just gets harder to see. These are 10 Florida towns where, even after the crackdowns, even after the sweeps, even after the new laws, the homeless crisis remains undeniable. Daytona Beach. Daytona Beach is built on fun, spring break, NASCAR, millions of visitors every year. But walk from the tourist strip toward Beach Street, the heart of the city's supposed downtown revival, and the picture changes fast. Business owners along Beach Street have been raising alarms for years. The general manager of the Salty Dog Surf Shop told a local outlet the situation had been getting progressively worse, describing the last 2 years as the worst his business has experienced in a quarter century. A local TV crew counted 20 unhoused individuals camping in Breakers Oceanfront Park in a single afternoon. Signs outside the park prohibit camping, bathing in the splash pad, and a list of other activities that those same business owners say they witness on a daily basis. Volusia and Flagler counties together count approximately 700 people experiencing homelessness on any given day. The First Step Shelter, the primary emergency shelter for single adults in the county, has a capacity of 100. When the shelter is at 96 people and another 100 are sleeping outdoors, you don't have a functioning shelter system. You have an encampment with a building next to it. When the anti-camping law took effect, Daytona scrambled. The city launched a $25,000 pilot program to put security officers on patrol along Beach Street 6 days a week. But enforcement faced the impossible arithmetic of the new law: move people out of public spaces and into shelters that are already full. When there is nowhere to go, telling someone to go there doesn't solve anything. Gainesville. Gainesville is a college town, home of the University of Florida and 60,000 students cycling through every few years. But Gainesville's homelessness problem grew to the point where a downtown encampment was cleared by police using bulldozers and dump trucks, not once, multiple times in 24 alone. The numbers tell the story. Gainesville's homeless population reached 725 people in 2230, with 417 of those individuals living completely unsheltered. And that unsheltered number had jumped 31% in a single year. The visible center of the crisis was the downtown area near Southeast 4th Place, close to St. Francis House Shelter. In February 2024, police cleared a tent line along that street, giving residents roughly 5 hours to leave. They had nowhere to go. Grace Marketplace, the city's other major shelter, was at capacity. By May 2024, the encampment had reformed and police moved in again, this time with excavators and city workers in white hazmat suits hauling away tents, while officers directed people toward the same shelter that had told them it was full 3 months earlier. One city commissioner called it a game of whack-a-mole. Move them from Southeast 4th Place, they appear near the fire station. Move them from the fire station, they show up behind Grace Marketplace. The cycle repeats. Because the math never changes, roughly 130 emergency shelter beds available. 417 people sleeping outside. You do the math. And now, in early 2006, St. Francis House, operating in Gainesville since 1980, serving over 5,000 guests since 2016, has announced it is closing its downtown facility due to funding and staffing challenges. Gainesville is about to lose one of its only shelter resources right when need is at its peak. Kissimmee. Most people know Kissimmee as the place you stay when you're going to Disney. Budget hotels, chain restaurants, strip malls south of Orlando. What those families don't see is what Kissimmee has been dealing with off the tourist corridors. Osceola County saw a 105% spike in unsheltered homelessness across the Orange, Osceola, and Seminole County region between 2019 and 2024. Not a 10% jump, not 30%. Over 5 years, the number of people sleeping completely outside with no shelter at all more than doubled. The 2025 point-in-time count found 373 people experiencing homelessness in Osceola County, with 188 of them living on streets, in woods, or in their vehicles. Kissimmee City Commissioners voted in January 2025 to adopt a no camping ordinance in compliance with state law. That vote was the easy part. The hard part is, where do people go when the shelter is full and the ordinance says you can't sleep on public property? The nonprofit Hope Partnership, which works to end Osceola's homelessness, has watched camps push farther from the center of town as enforcement has intensified. People who might have been visible on a main road 2 years ago are now camping deep in tree lines, sleeping behind strip malls, out of sight because being out of sight is now a survival strategy. Martha R., CEO of the Homeless Services Network of Central Florida, put it plainly: affordable housing is not expanding to prevent this. Kissimmee is surrounded by tourist infrastructure, hotels, short-term rentals, vacation properties on Airbnb, which has driven up the cost of every unit in the region. Workers who service the tourism economy can't afford to live near where they work. When something goes wrong, there's no safety net within reach. The shadow city of Kissimmee isn't visible from International Drive, but it's there. Jacksonville is Florida's largest city by land area and one of the most complex when it comes to homelessness. The problem doesn't concentrate in one obvious zone the way it does in a smaller city, but it's there. And in 2024, it grew fast. The nonprofit Changing Homelessness found 567 people experiencing homelessness in Duval, Clay, and Nassau counties, up from 396 in the year before. A 43% jump in unsheltered individuals in a single year. News photos from March 2024 showed a person in a tent pitched in a vacant lot near Ashley and Clay Streets, blocks from the center of downtown Jacksonville. The city had a plan. A comprehensive 5-year strategy with $10 million allocated, expanding shelter beds, outreach teams, and options like contracting with hotels for temporary shelter. The plan was real. The money was real. But plans take time, and people sleeping outside don't wait for a 5-year timeline. Jacksonville covers roughly 874 square miles, one of the largest cities by area in the entire country. You can't do a sweep of one neighborhood and claim the problem is under control. Encampments form somewhere, get cleared, and reconstitute somewhere else in a landscape too vast to monitor comprehensively. A 43% jump in 1 year tells you everything you need to know about the direction. Pensacola. Pensacola sits at the far northwest corner of the state. White sand beaches, military bases, Gulf Coast beauty. But near the city's core, in the area around Beggs Lane, one of the most alarming homeless encampments in Florida has existed for nearly 20 years. The Beggs Lane encampment sits on a former EPA Superfund site. The land once housed the Escambia Wood Treating Company, abandoned in 1991, leaving behind approximately 120 acres of contaminated soil and a 1.5-mile-long plume of contaminated groundwater. For nearly 2 decades, an estimated 150 people have been living there. Healthcare workers from Community Health who provide services at the encampment have documented patients with gastrointestinal illness from tainted water, cases of West Nile virus, and what one social worker described as a troubling number of rare and aggressive cancers likely connected to prolonged exposure to the contaminated soil and groundwater below their feet. People are cooking and sleeping and raising children on a patch of land where the federal government classified the ground itself as hazardous waste. No law passed in Tallahassee changes that reality until someone provides somewhere safer for these people to go. Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale has been in a tug-of-war with its downtown homeless crisis for years. Broward County has well over 2,000 people experiencing homelessness. The streets and parks between the main library and Stranahan Park became the most visible symbol of that crisis. A tent encampment that local leaders themselves admitted had become a symbol of community failure. The city cleared that encampment in late 2018 with a genuine collaborative effort. 41 tents removed with consent, dozens of households connected to housing programs. Progress was real. Then years later, a new encampment formed along Broward Boulevard near Interstate 95. Dozens of tents, motorhomes, shopping carts, and reportedly even a sailboat spread across public land near the Tri-Rail commuter station. By September 2024, a mayoral candidate was holding a press conference outside a soccer stadium suggesting the parking lot be converted into a homeless camp because it was the only available space anyone could identify. The county mayor promised to enforce the new law as humanely as possible, while admitting no site for a designated shelter had been found. The county sheriff publicly said he would not use the jail to house homeless residents. The city and county pointed at each other. Meanwhile, in a wooded area off Blount Road, a compound of tents and tarps had existed for more than a decade. One resident told a reporter she had been there for 12 years. She and one other person were the only camp members who worked. She did roofing work and panhandling and had purchased most of the tents herself. Fort Lauderdale is the city where Florida's housing crisis and its tourism identity are in the most direct, visible conflict. The people in those camps aren't leaving because a law says so. Tallahassee, Florida's state capital, presents an almost surreal irony. The city where the laws banning homeless encampments were written and signed is itself in the middle of one of the state's most intractable homeless situations. Tallahassee is home to what has been described as the poorest zip code in Florida, and it serves as the destination of last resort for unhoused individuals from across the entire northern part of the state. This comes down to one geographical fact. The Kearney Center, Tallahassee's main emergency shelter, is reportedly the only large-scale homeless facility between Pensacola and Jacksonville. Hundreds of miles of Florida Panhandle and North Florida funnel their most vulnerable residents toward the capital when they need help. When those residents arrive and discover the shelter is full, that the services they were told existed don't exist at the scale they need, encampments form. An official tracking homeless relocations out of the city documented moving over 650 people in 22 months. He described 10 to 15 encampments clustered on West Pensacola Street near White Drive, just down from the Kearney Center itself. He described people from other states being given bus tickets to Tallahassee without coordination with local services, including one case of a blind man released from a Missouri prison and routed to Tallahassee with no contacts, no support, and no housing waiting for him. This is a capital city that passes statewide laws about homelessness while managing encampments a few blocks from the legislative chambers. Orlando is arguably the most scrutinized homeless situation in the state, simply because of what the city is supposed to represent: the theme park capital of the world, a place built to manufacture happiness for visitors from every country on Earth. And in 2200, roughly 2,800 people were experiencing homelessness in the three-county metro Orlando area, with about 1,090 sleeping completely unsheltered. The 22 four-point-in-time count found 2,883 homeless men, women, and children in Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties on a single night. That same count noted that Orange County Public Schools had reported nearly 7,000 students experiencing homelessness over the previous academic year. Not adults, children. In a school district attached to the world's most visited tourism destination, the average rent for a two-bedroom apartment in the Orlando area had risen to approximately $2,300 a month by 2024. The tourism economy employs hundreds of thousands of workers at wages that cannot support that rent. You cannot solve Orlando's homelessness crisis without addressing that gap. And right now, the gap is not closing. The 2025 count showed Metro Orlando's homeless population had held at around 2,781 people, compared to 2,706 the year before. That is being presented as a small victory. But a system where roughly 3,000 people are homeless in the backyard of Disney World, and the best news is that the number barely moved, is a system that isn't working. St. Petersburg. Pinellas County, home to both St. Petersburg and Clearwater, holds a distinction in Florida's homelessness data that rarely gets the attention it deserves. A report from the Florida Coalition for the Homeless found that Pinellas had the highest concentration of homelessness relative to its population of any county in the state, higher even than Miami-Dade when you adjust for population size. In 22, Pinellas logged 721 unhoused people, a 12% increase from 2230. The CEO of the Homeless Leadership Alliance of Pinellas explained the dynamic. Pinellas is a resource-rich county with a lot of services, and people come from across the region to access those services. The concentration of need in Pinellas is, in part, a consequence of Pinellas doing a better job of trying to help than its neighbors. September 2024 news footage taken weeks before the statewide camping ban took full effect showed Clearwater police officers and social services specialists searching through the brush for the occupant of a tent pitched on vacant land near the Pinellas Trail. One officer, one social worker, one tent, one person somewhere in the scrub. That scene, multiplied hundreds of times across the county, is what the actual implementation of this law looks like on the ground. St. Petersburg's downtown has undergone real transformation over the past decade. Arts districts, craft breweries, a waterfront that transforms at sunset. It sits adjacent to neighborhoods where the shelter system is stretched thin and housing waiting lists run for months. The contrast exists in the same city. You can walk from the brunch district to a tent encampment faster than most people want to admit. Miami? Miami is the case study. The city where Florida's homelessness crisis is at its most visible, most politically contentious, and most heavily documented. Miami-Dade County operates with a unique, dedicated funding source for homelessness. A 1% food and beverage tax that the Homeless Trust calls the first dedicated funding stream for homelessness of its kind in the United States. 3 decades of institutional infrastructure, and even with all of that, the problem has not been solved. In the summer of 2024, census teams counted 1,004 unsheltered individuals across Miami-Dade County. Downtown Miami was identified as the epicenter, with over half of the city's unsheltered homeless, roughly 355 individuals, concentrated in that area. A city commissioner looked at the numbers and said downtown was beginning to look like a war zone. The city responded with encampment sweeps while acknowledging that sweeps don't provide housing. Miami Beach passed its own camping ban before the statewide law even existed. Between May 2015 and March 2024, 57 individuals had been booked into Miami-Dade jails on illegal camping charges over 9 years. Then, in just a few months of 2024, over 90 people were booked, more in 5 months than in the previous 9 years combined. Miami Beach's mayor declared the city had one of the lowest homeless populations in its history. Critics pointed out that arrests had shifted the population across the bridge into the city of Miami proper, where numbers promptly rose. By January 2025, the Miami-Dade unsheltered count had dropped to 858, an 11-year low. The Homeless Trust cited intensified outreach, the psychological pressure of the new law, and the cold snap. But 858 people is still 858 people sleeping outside in one county, and the sheltered population simultaneously increased, meaning some of the improvement reflects people moving into an already strained system, not into stable housing. Ron Book, chairman of the Miami-Dade Homeless Trust, was direct. You cannot turn the jail into a homeless shelter and think that's ending homelessness. It's not going to solve any problem. Florida added nearly 30 million people worth of sunshine and promise to its brand over the past century. The economic forces that made the state attractive, low taxes, warm weather, relatively affordable land, also created a housing market that eventually priced out the people who service its economy and left the most vulnerable members of its population with nowhere to go. The camps in this video didn't appear overnight. They grew slowly over years and decades, as housing costs outran wages, as mental health funding stayed flat while need expanded, as the shelter system stayed sized for a crisis from 15 years ago while the crisis tripled in scale. House Bill 1365 has moved people. Encampments have been cleared, numbers have shifted, but a law that moves people without providing somewhere for them to go doesn't reduce homelessness, it relocates it. Into the woods, into the margins, into the parts of these cities where neither the cameras nor the tourists ever go. The real question for Florida, for Daytona Beach, for Gainesville, for Jacksonville and Miami and every other place on this list is whether the state is willing to do the harder, slower, more expensive work of actually housing people. Until that answer changes, the camps will be there. Maybe not where you can see them, but they'll be there. Drop a comment and let us know if any of these cities surprised you, or if you've seen this situation firsthand in any of these towns.